Hi folks, you're looking at the beautiful new 3-rail O-scale Frisco 484 Northern. It's made by Lionel, and we're going to check it out right now on Eric's Trains. So the 484 Northern, certainly one of my favorite non-articulated steam engine types. I don't know why, but I've always liked 484 Northerns and the 484 wheel arrangement in general. And for that reason, I've got quite a few 484s in my fleet. Now, as I said, the 484 does refer to the wheel arrangement on this locomotive. So you've got 4 wheels up front, 8 drive wheels here in the middle, and then 4 wheels on the trailing truck. The name Northern, where does that come from? Well, typically a locomotive gets its name from the first railroad to use that wheel arrangement. And here in the United States, the first railroad to use the 484 wheel arrangement was the Northern Pacific, and so thereafter these things became known as Northerns. So this is not the first Lionel 484 Northern in my fleet. 7 years ago, I bought 2 Lionel 484 Northerns, Santa Fe 3751 and Santa Fe 3759. Those are fantastic locomotives. I did a video review of those locomotives about 7 years ago. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. I'll put a link to that video in this video. Now, not too long ago, I did sell 3751 and I kept 3759, and one of the reasons I sold 3751 was to free up some room because I had a feeling that I'd be adding another 484 Northern in the near future, and well, here we go. So Lionel brought back the 484 Northerns in their 2019 Volume 2 catalog, and those models started arriving at dealers in the fall of 2020. Now, in that catalog, they split up the Northerns into 2 groups, or 2 variations. There's the 484S, and this locomotive is part of that group, and the road names offered for the 484S were Atlantic Coastline, Rock Island, Rio Grande, Mopac, Frisco 4524, and of course Frisco 4500 that we have here. The other group was the good old Santa Fe 3751 class, so they did a beautiful bluish silver 3765, which I would like to get at some point, and then they also did 3751, 3757, and 3759. So all total, they did 10 Northerns in the 2019 Volume 2 catalog, so there's lots to choose from. Now, as far as differences go between the 2 variations of the Northerns in the catalog, on the inside, they're pretty much exactly the same. Really, the only difference that I can tell is that the 484S locomotives have a coal tender, at least Frisco 4500 does, and the Santa Fe locomotives have oil tenders. Other than that, they're pretty much exactly the same. Now, one interesting note is that in the catalog, 4500 here was shown with an oil tender, but I'm guessing that was a goof when they put out the catalog because, as you can see, the final production version had a coal tender, which is correct based on photographs I've seen of the real 4500. Let's go over some stats and facts on this model. The length of the locomotive is right at 14.5 inches. The length of the tender is 10 inches. When coupled together, they have a combined length of 26 inches. The weight of the engine is 8 pounds 4 ounces. The weight of the tender is 4 pounds, so that gives us a combined weight of 12 pounds 4 ounces. When tested, this engine had 2 pounds 4 ounces of pulling power, which is pretty good, and the minimum required curve needed to run this engine is 0.54. This model features all LED lighting, including the headlight, the backup light, the marker lights, and the light on the inside of the cab. There's a remotely operated electrocoupler on the back of the tender. On the inside, the engine is driven by one large flywheel motor. There are 2 fan-driven smoke units, one for the smokestack and one for the whistle steam smoke effect. And then you've also got legacy command control, Bluetooth, and legacy rail sounds on board. Just like most high-end scale locomotives that Lionel is making right now, there are 5 ways to operate this thing. The preferred method is to use Lionel's legacy command system, as that will give you access to all of this model's advanced features and functions. However, you can also use Lionel's legacy TMCC command system. Then you've got a couple of Bluetooth options open to you. You can run this engine using the Lion Chief app on your smartphone or tablet, or you can use the Lion Chief Universal Remote. And then finally, you can run this model conventionally with nothing more than a transformer and some track. So by now you've seen a lot of this engine while I've been talking, but I did want to show you a few details starting on the front of the Pilot. So you can see they've got a dummy scale coupler just so it has a nice realistic look. And by the way, when I say dummy coupler, I mean one that's not operational. Now, if you want to double head the engine, well, you can't very well do that with that dummy scale coupler. So in that case, you can remove that dummy scale coupler and replace it with a dummy O-gauge coupler, and that's packaged with the engine when you buy it. Secondly, this model inherits the interchangeable smokestacks option from the Santa Fe 3751 series locomotives. So right out of the box, you'll have this smokestack on the model. However, in that same box, you'll find these alternate smokestacks, and they're made of die-cast metal. So if you want to, you can remove that smokestack like so, and in its place, put this one. This is the smokestack shown on the Santa Fe Northerns in the catalog. Kind of has an industrial look to it. Or you can remove that one and in its place put my favorite smokestack, which is this one. I've always thought this kind of has a steampunk look to it. Kind of reminds me of the locomotive at the end of Back to the Future 3. Now, I don't know if the real 484S locomotives had these types of smokestacks, but they're included in the box, so why not use them? Then we've got this midsection of the locomotive here, which is noteworthy for several reasons. First of all, we've got the whistle steam smoke effect. So there's a hole here behind the whistle, and when you blow the whistle, it shoots smoke out of that hole and gives the illusion of steam shooting out of the whistle. Then we've got a couple of cool old school holdovers because this is a slightly older tooling back from when the Santa Fe 3751 series locomotives were done 7 or 8 years ago. So one thing I like is that the engine controls are here under the sand dome. Let me pop this piece off. There we go. And then we've got the run program switch, the Bluetooth on-off switch, and then 2 switches for the smoke units. One for the smokestack smoke unit and one for the whistle steam smoke unit. And this thing is held down with magnets, so it'll snap back just like that. The other old school feature is the configuration of the whistle steam smoke unit. So the fill hole for the whistle steam smoke unit is located underneath this steam dome. So let me see if I can pop it off. There we go. And there's the fill hole. So if you want to load the whistle steam smoke unit with more smoke fluid, you pour the smoke fluid down this hole and then you pop the cap back on like that. So this contrasts to the way it's done on more recent toolings for Lionel steam locomotives. Back when this tooling was made 8 or 9 years ago, the whistle steam smoke effect was still a relatively new feature, and it wasn't on every single engine like it is now. And so Lionel was still sort of figuring it all out and determining the best way to do it. And at that time, they had it as a complete standalone feature where there was a separate smoke unit underneath the whistle, and then the fill hole was in a discrete location like underneath a steam dome. In the years since, they've gotten better at it and streamlined the process to make it more efficient both in cost and in execution. And so the way it's done nowadays is that underneath the main smokestack, there's a big dual smoke unit where half of it is responsible for the smokestack and half of it is responsible for the whistle steam. And then the smoke for the whistle steam is delivered via a rubber tube that goes out to wherever the whistle happens to be. Now, before anybody jumps the gun, I'm not saying that the old method is better than the new method. I'm not saying that at all. The whistle steam smoke effect is just as good today as it was back then. They've simply streamlined the process in the years between then and now. I just think it's kind of cool that in a new model made in 2020, we've still got this kind of old school setup going on. Here's a look at the interior of the cab. There are 2 hand-painted crew figures, and look at all that nice detailing in there. Looks fantastic. And then on the back of the tender, we've got these water hatches, and they do open up like that. And underneath the last hatch, you'll find the master volume control for the engine. All right, the last thing we're going to do before we start this thing up is BFIMO, best feature in my opinion. Well, my favorite feature by far on these Lionel 484 Northerns has to be those interchangeable smokestacks. I loved it when they did them on the Santa Fe 3751 class 7 years ago, and I love it now. And you know, it might not necessarily be the most realistic thing, but it's just cool, and sometimes you gotta forget about realism and just embrace the cool. All right, now comes the fun part. Let's go ahead and start this thing up.
This is the dispatcher. Do you copy?
I copy that. Over.
Please start up and stand by. Over.
Yes, sir. We'll fire her up. Out.
Okay, first up, let's check out the whistle, which I kind of like on this engine. And here's the bell. Here's the sound of water being added to the tender.
My water's full. Over.
Roger that. Out.
And here's the cylinder steam sound. And finally, here's a sampling of some of the crew talk sounds.
Tower, my oil's full. Am I cleared to the outbound? Over.
Roger that. Take the green. Over.
Copy that, dispatcher. I'm green. Out.
Dispatcher here. You're cleared outbound. Over.
Copy that, dispatcher. I'm green. Out.
Alright, so I've got some assorted passenger cars behind the 4500. I don't have any Frisco passenger cars in my fleet, so I just had to make do with what I did have. Anyway, let's go ahead and move it out. right, that about wraps it up for this review. I hope you enjoyed it. This is a beautiful locomotive, and considering that I was missing my 3751, I'm really glad that I picked one of these up. If you'd like to get one for yourself, the retail price is right at $1,600, $1,599.99 to be exact. But keep in mind that if you go through a good Lionel dealer, you can probably get a little bit of a discount off that retail price. As always, if you'd like to support Eric's Trains, I would greatly appreciate it. That can be done through Patreon at patreon.com/ericstrains. I'd like to put a big thank you out there to all of my current Patreon supporters. Your support means the world, not only to me, but to the future of this channel. And finally, if you'd like to buy an Eric's Trains t-shirt or anything else I might be selling, check out the Eric's Trains online store at ericstrains.com/store. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.